reasons that people said that they aborted their children were financial reasons. 21% of people said that for finances they had to have the abortion. Others said not ready for responsibility, 21%. Women's life would change too much. You know, we're so me-centered, you know, problems with relationship. They may be unmarried, so therefore it's a taboo to have a child without being married. Some of them are too young and they're not mature enough and they don't want any more children, you know, so you might be a divorce, say, or you might be a woman who's already had, you know, children who are grown, and then you get pregnant and you're like, okay, I don't want any more kids right now. And so, and then the other part of that is some, you know, and very, very small, those people who don't want any more children are like 8% of that grouping. And then the health problems of the mom or the fetus is only 3%. So we look at that and we're saying, wow, you know, finances, well, gee, why didn't you think of that before you know, did what you did?
And there is a lot of help for pregnant women, but you bring up something that's really very sad, that what they're finding now, you said about the repeat abortions, almost 50% of abortions, the woman has had at least one prior abortion. And what they're finding is that these women feel, not society as a whole, but there around them, there isn't enough support, that the father of the child, they don't feel is responsible or whatever. And so it's a big job that we have, because some of the things you're saying could be selfishness or what have you, but there definitely are people who are saying, I don't have, and it isn't monetary support, I don't have people around me who will support me on this. And so I think, again, it sounds as though what you might have talked about in some other weeks, if you could have people who are married and are stable and what have you, and have grandparents and all these things, then they're not going to feel as though there's no one to take care of them.
Of course not. But you see, the thing about it though, and that's going to be a little later on, we're going to hit that in terms of the media and how it portrays sex and so forth, because sex in our society is just very, very loose. And so people are not saying you're going to get married for love, you know, you're going to get married. You know, marriage is like a passé thing nowadays. You know, we don't see as much marriage as we used to. And so therefore we're not seeing that family unit, and that family unit is really, you know, it's all about family right now, and the family unit is being destroyed just by this, you know. Let's talk about law. Let's talk about law. Let's talk about Roe v. Wade and Norma McCorvey, because this is, you know, this is the case that really turned everything around in 1973 and caused, you know, this whole hoorah going on right now. So tell us a little about that.
Roe v. Wade was a case that came from Texas, and the same day the Supreme Court decided Doe v. Bolton that came from, I think, Georgia. And the Norma McCorvey was the woman in Roe v. Wade. She didn't actually have an abortion. She wasn't really abortion-minded. She went to some women's center looking for help, and to them she was the perfect textbook case. Well, what happened, for many years she was kind of a sad case. She went from job to job, and you know, and then she was working in an abortion clinic, and she met some Christians who were counseling outside, and it seems as though they were the only people who'd ever really been nice to her. So anyway, she over the years has become very pro-life, and is a wonderful spokesperson, and has become very religious and is now happy, which she wasn't before. The Roe v. Wade is the case that said essentially abortion is available throughout all 9 months of pregnancy. But the Doe v. Bolton we don't hear as much about, and it's very important because it talked about the health of the mother. And what it said was, yes, in the last, of course, trimester is so silly. We're talking 40 weeks.
Come on, let's talk
about
that.
But they said in the last trimester, a state could regulate abortion except if it impacted on the health of the mother. And then they defined health as being if the child was a future financial burden, if, you know, anything you can think of. Now, there's no child who isn't a future financial burden. So what they did, Roe v. Wade opened it up. And then Doe v. Bolton defined health in such a way
Wow.
that right up to the 9 months, if you can find a doctor, you can have the abortion. And that makes us the most extreme pro-abortion country in the world.
course.
You know, I mean, I think this is a pretty good country.
Yes.
But when we see things like that, and we look down on Russia where people have had lots of abortions and all,
yes.
but this through the whole 9 months, we're the absolute most extreme.
Of course. And you know what, like you were saying earlier, we're talking about the first trimester and the second trimester and the third trimester. Come on, give me a break, okay? Once the baby, the egg and the sperm meets, conception has already begun. Life has begun as we know it. It now goes into the next phase or process, and everything is a process. And so therefore, you know, for them to break it down, that the Supreme Court were the ones who broke it down in that manner because they wanted to justify what they were doing, how they wanted to do what they want to do. They never struck down Roe v. Wade and saying that the baby, that the mother, that what the law said in Texas was wrong. They never said it was wrong. All they did was say, listen, first trimester, you can have your abortion. Second trimester, if the mother's life is in danger, she can have an abortion. Third trimester, they said they will look out for the baby, so if the baby's life is in danger or jeopardy, you can have the abortion. And so they broke it down like that. But come on, give me a break. Give me a break. This is not, I mean, for me, I can't understand how you could break that down in any of its facet, because life is life. From conception to the birth of that child, and then from that child, from the infancy up to when they're 90 or 100 years old. There's still life that's going on.
You're right, it's still the same human being.
Of course.
What's very interesting is the people who want to say, well, it's not a human being, they must believe in miracles, that something that isn't a human being all of a sudden becomes a human being. We believe in biology. If you have a human being, it was always. But the other interesting thing about the way they broke it down is, well, two things. They said that no one really knows when life begins, but if they had gone to any embryology book, the embryology book says what you say. But the other thing too is in 1973, a baby who would be born at, say, 28 or 30 weeks prematurely didn't have a very good chance of surviving. Now, babies born at 21 weeks are surviving.
Absolutely.
The baby is the same.
Absolutely.
The difference is our technology. So they imposed their not very good understanding of technology
of course.
at that point.
Of course.
And 37 years, isn't that awful? 37 years later, our technology has just advanced
So much.
So many babies are born prematurely and are fine.
Absolutely.
So even from that point of view, they should revisit it.
Of course, of course. And like you were saying, just in terms of the baby and the science of it all, just the technology that we have now. You know, back in the day when Wilson, you know, in 1787 and 1789, when Wilson was the judge and whatever, and he signed onto the whole Constitution and so forth, he also said at that point that that the baby was like when it was quickened. But they didn't have the technology that we have today.
I
and
think
quickening meant like when you can feel the baby jumping inside.
But see,
you.
what they were saying was, if it's a baby, then you should protect its life.
Of course.
They didn't understand when it became a baby.
Absolutely.
But the principle was the same.
It was.
And,
it is.
And they try to say, oh, well, any laws they had were only to protect the women. But as you say, they weren't. They were saying, we can't kill people here or here or here, well, we shouldn't be doing it here either.
Absolutely. And another part of that is the right to life. In the Declaration of Independence, it says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, come on, give me a break.
Well, you know, the interesting thing about that, too, is that it doesn't happen as much now, but people used to say to us all the time, well, your single issue, of course it has become stem cells, you know, it's
of course,
a huge
cloning,
number.
everything.
But they would say, now you should be worried about, and whatever their pet thing was.
Of course.
But you know, if you don't have life, it doesn't matter whether somebody finds you a house or You know,
Whatever.
I mean, if you don't have life, all of these other things that
You
people
can't have
exactly
and enjoy them.
And so that's where we need to start.
Of course.
And then we can be concerned about the other things.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then also the Amendment 5 says, nor shall be deprived of life, liberty, or the pursuit of happiness. Okay? So when we're looking at that baby, we're looking at that baby in the womb and cannot speak for itself, is silent.